Starting recording, yes. So, good afternoon for all of you. The last time you have already discussed about interfaces and abstraction. So the last lecture it is the last part when talk about classes and inheritance and the hierarchy between different kind of classes and how we can extend, how we can create this inheritance and how we can create object and what is different restriction we have. So starting from today, before we will go to have more advanced applications, we should talk about some data structures that we can use it in Java object-oriented programming, which is more advanced structure comparing to the classical one that we know. So far we know that, okay, there is something we name it variable, it can hold a value. There is an array, we can use it based on your all experience with different programming courses. Starting today, you will start learn more about different Java data structure that we can use it within the concept of OOP. Why we need this? Because if you want to make a real applications later, you need to know different data structure that you can save temporary the values while you are doing different computing procedures. Before I start the lecture, I want to remind you that attending a live session is totally optional. However, it is highly recommended. I didn't update the file of the bonus. However, I will update it today. That all people who will participate in the group work exercise, they will get bonus pay for their assignment. So this bonus grade will be for the assignment. And while starting from the assignment 2, I will have also a bonus part in the assignment 2. So the people who can't attend the live session and still they have an opportunity to get bonus using the bonus part in the assignment. Again, who can attend the live session, go ahead and do it. It is highly recommended. Maybe I will send. Also, I want to thank all people who participated in the survey. I have 8 persons. They have already participated in the survey. The outcome, most of the outcomes, as I can see here. So we have 8. Concerning the clearness of the material explained so far, I have here, for example, 5 responses. They are, say, very clear. I have 2 said not so clearly. Concerning the instruction material delivered so far, increase your knowledge and skill in the subject matter, I have, between agree and strong agree, I have 6. And I have a new one in neutral and 1 disagree, which means that the majority is a positive response for most of the questions. This is good, this is perfect. Here I can see that there are some comments concerning, they are very, the suggestion was not really a suggestion, just a comment like good so far, everything was good. Somebody has said he's doing very well, thank you, okay, thank you. Somebody talk about that maybe I have a strong accent. Yes, I agree. Maybe this is why I will add subtitles when you watch YouTube video. There is no special suggestion that I can discuss it today, but again, maybe I will consider the course timing. I will send another survey for this, that if we change the course timing, then maybe there are more people, they will be more interested to be with us in the live session. I'm not sure when I will send this, but I will expect to do this. Again, attendance totally optional. However, such kind of interaction while we are recording this video, it will be helpful for all people who's going to watch this video. And it will give a good opportunity to ask me questions, even though this question will not be for this lecture, will be maybe for the old lectures. And also, people who, based on their time restriction, they can't attend the live session. They still can have one-to-one meeting with me using one of by participating in the virtual office hour. However, participating in the virtual office hour, you need to send me an email to book a slot for you. Based on the timetable that I have already published at the beginning of the semester, you can go to the Blackboard, check the virtual office section. There are so much details there. So I'll be very helpful for people here. Said that I said that I have two set not so clearly. So I encourage these students to have a one-to-one meeting with me in the virtual office hour, that I can help them to clarify some points if they still need some clarification. Okay, so let's return back here. So the last lecture was about abstract classes and methods and interfaces. As I said in the beginning, then we are done about different concepts related to classes and objects, hierarchy and inheritance and polymorphism. So all of us now familiar with me by class and objects and how we can use them, how we can make different restrictions to the access, how we can create different instances, what's the difference between classes and interfaces, want to use this kind of classes and this kind and this interfaces. So today we will discuss the Java enums and the inputs, how we can get an input and our array list. And if we can do the group work. Maybe Jason here can do it. So Java enum. Enum is a very special class. It is more as a data type. Normally, when we talk about a class, we talk about class is a set of, so far we know about what a class. It is a set of variables and methods that we group them with each other since they are talking about the same topic or concept. However, sometimes we don't want to create a class to group set of values. Because when we create a class, we expect later to create an objects, and we can also have different inheritance or other classes. But sometimes we just have a group of variables. They are talking about the same subject, just variables. And we need to group them in a one entity. This is enum. So enum, we can say it is a special class in reality. However, I can say it's more a data structure, whereas set of variables, they are being grouped with each other under a special label or a special name. However, these sets of variables, they are going to be static, final, and also public. And when we talk about static, final, that the values cannot be changed because they are static, final. So like here, so I said enum. I didn't use the word class. Enum. Enum. So here in this enum, I'm sorry. Here, yes. Here, you can find that this enum, we name it level. It has 3 different variables. And then we are going to assign to them values. And later, for example, here, Like here, season. Season, it is enum. Why? Because for us, season can have winter, spring, summer, fall. 4 different values. So far as you can know from enum, we can use it normally since the variables and the values, they are final static. Again, final static. So we are not going to use them when there is a value is changeable. In this case, we will not use enum. Enum normally it's used in Java for the static value, like the day of the week. So if you want to use you are creating a Java application, then you are going to use maybe you are creating a graphical user interface later, and then you want to display the number of the day of the week. So the list of the days can be saved in enum. Why? Because they are unchangeable. You can use it in different places as they are. Directions, seasons, colors, such kind of set of values. They are related to each other, like colors, all talking about different colors, talking about the days of the week. So in this case, we can use enum. Again, we shouldn't use enum for value that they can be changeable later. Here, if you want, we have already an enum. Like here, we name it season, winter, spring, summer, fall. And we want to make a loop for this. We can use the for each loop. So the for each loop here, in this case, we have here a season s. We said for each value. So normally there is 2 kinds of for loops in Java. People who are not aware about this. Either you create a for loop, like for integer I less than 10, for example, I++, or I minus minus, whatever. So you normally, if you talk about for loop, you will have an initial value to your counter, then you will have the condition where you are going to stop, and you will have also the increment or decrement base, how are you going to do your for loop. However, there is another kind of loops, which is, we name it for each. And normally this is used for collection of elements. So sometimes, rather than creating a condition based on predefined value or a counter, so we can make a loop based on number of the element in this collection. Like here, when I said for season, double point, season.values. In this case, I'm saying that I'm going to make a loop for based on the season collection, which is enum, and the number of the iteration for this loop, again, hear this, the number of the iteration for this loop is based on the number of the values in this enum. So in this case, if I have a 4 element here, then I will have 4 iteration here. So in each iteration, I will print out the values. So I can get the values from the enum dot values. If you see, since this is, it is not like the classical class we know it. So we don't have create season as new as just I said season dot values. So for each season s, I resemble this season by s. And if I say it s or a or b or c, whatever it is, since Again, enum is set of values, static, final. So if I name it S or A or B, the same values will be. There is no inheritance. There is no a class will extend this. It is an enum, enum. And the value, they are fixed, static. So here I said season.values. So the number of iteration for this for loop is based on the values. Since we have 4 values, we will have 4 iteration. In each iteration, I'm printing this season.values like I do here. Enum in switch statement. So normally we can see it so much that we use enum with a switch statement. Why we use it with switch statement? Because as I said from the beginning, the enum is used for a predefined list of values that are static and final. And normally we use it for values that will not change again during my application, in any place in my application, in any class in my application. And when we create an enum, it should be created within a class. We are going to use it. I don't know if some people who is taking this course, they are familiar with C++. It will be very similar to the struct. There's somebody here aware about this. In C and C++, they have something they name it struct, which means that you have a set of values, you give as one label, and you group them under a struct. It is the same case here, enum. So like here, so I go to level, my var, and I said, okay, my var here, cases. I think you are familiar with the switch one. So here, again, if you want to access any value, so we said level.medium. It is somehow similar when we create an object from a class, and then if you have a class A, and A have X, Y, Z, if I said A, small a equal new A dot X, this is how I access variables in a class. And here also, since the name of this set is level, so if I want to access one of them, I said level.medium. So, and since here my var is going here, so I said here switch case based on the value of my var. My var is resembling medium. So since this case, it will go here and print out this. What about now to see the difference between enum and a class? Again, enum, it is a special class. However, we see it more as a data structure. What I mean by a data structure? It is a data container where I can save different value, but static, unchangeable. So if you make this comparison between enum and a class, enum constant cannot be overridden. Static, final. Class constant can be overridden. Enum doesn't support creation of object. There is nothing named enum new enum. When you talk, for example, here, I will not say enum level enum L equal new level, for example. There is nothing like this. Class support creative object. Enum cannot extend other classes. A class can extend other classes. Enum can implement interface. A class also can. This is both, they are somehow similar to each other. However, this is very rarely used. Because as I said, when we talk about enum, we talk more about set of values static one that rather than each time we write it again, we all of them give it a name, like here, level. And then we use it in different places. This is the main reason for using enum, just a grouping set of values. So it's more about giving a label to set of values. That's all for enum. And it is used, as I said, however, for static values that we are well sure that they will not be changed later on terms, these, like the name of the days. Normally you can see it also when you want to define the scale. For example, what I mean by scale, you have an application that deals with the scale of the weight. So there are a set of predefined settings or values in your application that they will not change later, and you don't want them to be changed. Then you use enum in this case. Let's start now with the Java user input. Java user input, I think I should add it here because I know that there are some students in this course that they are not well aware of different Java syntax before. And maybe they have already taken before other introductory courses, but not based on Java. So it will be good sometimes that I will give you the basics concept for Java that later that you can need it here in this course when we talk about OOP concept. One of them is Java user input. We have already seen many times in different examples that we have already discussed how you can print out the values, system.out.println, since we are dealing with different simple examples during the lectures. However, we should be also aware about how we can get values from the user. Again, we are not talking about a graphical user interface, how we can create graphical user interface in Java and then you can get the values. This is out of the scope of the course. But since you are creating an application, you should be able to get values and display values. So there is a class named scanner. It is under util package, util package. I think we have discussed the last time what I mean by package. We said package is a set of classes, and we have a space sometimes will be where a set of packages there are. So here, if you see this example, so we can create a new, since we make an import for this class. So we can go ahead and create an object using new scanner. We pass system.in as a parameter. And using this object, I can call any function is defined here. This is a predefined class. Just I create an object and use a function that are defined there. So I create here a variable named username, whatever it is. Here I print out enter your username. And you can see here, next line. What's this? Which means that you call this function, next line, which means get now whatever the user will write till he write a new line. So if I printed out what, for example, here I put my name Ismail and printed out is to be new username is Ismail. Let me show you. This is maybe, or let me discuss this and we can go to see this. Yeah, I have it here. Should be here. User input. Jason, you can see my compiler, yeah?
No.
You didn't see it before?
No.
Okay, let me finish this and be back there. So when we talk about an input, we said we have to create an object from new scanner and to take this input. Okay, good, perfect. Now the question was said, I said here you use next line, which means that it will take the whole input, the whole input that the user has already written in this line. What about I have to take different values, not waiting to have a new line? For example, I ask the user for different values, and sometimes I have to take the values as integer, sometimes I have to take the value as a double, sometimes I have to take the value as a string one. Next line, it will take them as a string one and put them for the whole values in this string, in this line, and will save them where I, based on my code. So I said my object next line, which means that the whole value that will be entered here in this line, save them in this variable. There are different functions. Again, we import the scanner, we create an object according to OOP. If there is a function defined in a class, and I have an access to the class, which means there is no restriction. For example, there is no private method or whatever it is, and I have already imported this, so I can create an object and access the values and access the method in this class. The first method is next line. I can go ahead and access different methods that I can use it to get different type of input from the user. Like here, next boolean, here, next float, next integer, next line, this is, we have already practiced it. If I go here, this example, you see here I create the object new scanner. I have to create the object. It is a must to use this method. And then I said to the user, enter 3 different values: name, age, salary. So I'm expecting to take 3 values from the user. So after I print out this, and then I create this object next line, which means I name it name, and the values that expected to from this function is going to be saved in the name. So whatever the user is going to write till he go to a new line, they will be saved under the name one. So here, when he will have to go to a new line and write another values, so here I didn't use the next line, which means that the first integer value, he will write it, I will save it here. Because I asked the user to write name and then age and then salary. And then after there should be a space, if you make a space, so the next double value, I have to save it here. This will be perfect because I will get the values as I expected from the user. However, we should be aware that if this value will not map the entered value mapped with the method that you use it, like next int or next double, you will get an error. So normally, if you are going to do this, you should have a catch error to return back a message to the user, tell him, oh, take care, you didn't enter an integer value. Let me check it here. Jason, you can see the screen now?
Still not. I'm just looking at the presentation.
Okay. Let me change the. I have to change maybe the screen, a screen, not a window. What about now, Jason?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. So I import java.util.scanner, util.scanner. In the main method.
Can you zoom in a little bit?
Sorry, what you said?
Can you zoom in a little bit? Yeah.
I think there is a way I can use a magnifier here. What about now?
Perfect.
Okay, so if we go to the main method. We created a new scanner object. I name it myOb. You can name it whatever you want. Ask the user, as we said, enter name, age. Let them go and run this, and yes, I need to. Okay, so I run it before. So here, let me zoom now. When I zoom, it will go to the next screen. Okay. So here I said enter name, age, salary. And now I will write first Ismail. So if I didn't make a new line, it will not save the values in the name variable. Because returning back to the code, I said here, my object next line, sorry, here, name next line, which means that whatever the value is going to be here, here it is. So whatever the value is here, even though it will be integer, it will be double, whatever it is going to be saved. It's going to save the whole values in this line in the variable we name it name. So now expect to have age. I will give you my age, 39. And I expect to have salary. I will not tell you about my salary. So now I got an error. Why I got an error? Because I use a semicolon. So if I said, again, here I said name, I expect a new line. Then here I expect age as integer. Then I expect a space double. Let's try it back. So Ismail IS MA, and this is my name. If I make a new line, so since I made a new line, the whole value from I till L was saved under in variable name. Now if I write 39, so and then I have to make space, and then I have to put a salary. So it accepted it. It print out name is Ismail, age 39, and salary it printed out as a double one, because even though when I enter the value, I enter it as an integer one. However, since I said next double, it will take it as a double one, and also it was here saved in a double variable. So let's try put Ismail. So if I write 36 or 39, and then I write like this, all this value is being saved under the name. So my name now is Ismail 39 1 2 3 6 5 4 4 6. And then I said age 39 again, and then you see. So even though there is a spaces here, since I use the next line, so the whole values in this line were saved under the variable name. And then it will take 39 and save it in the age. And whenever there is a space, in Java, we name it token. When we said next double, next integer, which means the next token. When I said next token, which means that what is the group of characters or values that will come after the space. So next double, next float, next integer, which means that after the first space, what will be the next value will be saved here. So the value will be saved from the first space to the new space. And the value that is going to be entered should be or should have the same type as the function that I use it. Next integer, so it will be integer. No character is accepted it. So if you are going to use next integer, next double, you should be aware that you should catch the error. Or you can always use the next line, and then you can get the value from the user as string, and you will convert them to other type that you require. Like, for example, you can get them as a string one, and you save them in the integer on the double one in this case. Okay. This is what I have already said. Exception error. Input mismatch exception. Arraylist. This is the main point for today. It's about Arraylist. Jason, you know array, yeah, Jason?
Yeah, I do.
So, do you know array in Java, C++? Where do you know the array?
Java and Python.
Perfect. It seems that you are a good programmer. You know Java, Python, and you are taking PHP with me in the class, so a lot of programming courses. Okay, so if I ask you to define an array, how you define it?
A list of data.
List of data, or a list of elements, or a list of values. We can use one of this definition. So normally in Java, if you want to create an array, do you have to define the number of elements that will be in this array?
Yes.
Yes. And also, all these elements should have the same type? For example, can you have in the same array integer and string?
I want to say yes. Not sure what.
I'm sorry to say no.
No. Okay.
Normally, if we will go to an array, as you said, an array is a set of values that has a fixed length. So I have to define the length of the array before I use it. I said, okay, 10 values, like here. This is my array is an array that will hold 10 values, and all should be integer. This is why it should be with a similar data type. They will all should be the same data type as we have already declared when we created the array. So if we said integer array equal new int, which means that all the values in this array, they are going to be integer one. So we can save a string, for example. All should be. Go ahead.
Why do you say like similar, not same?
Yeah, it's maybe correct. It should be same, not similar in this case.
Okay.
Yeah, the more accurate word, you are correct. The more accurate word should be the same, not similar. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what is an array in Java. So set of values all have the same type, and it has a fixed length. If we are going to work with some advanced application, like for example, we have a Java application that are reading value from sensors. Yeah, it can be used. That you have a sensor, you are working with embedded system, you have a sensor, and you are getting the value from this sensor each period of time, like each minute, each 10 minutes, each whatever it is. So we are going to save this data temporarily before you're sending them to the database. So you don't know what is the size of the data and the size of the values that you expect. So now if you are going to use an array, you should create a very huge array, which is a huge set of array that will be more than expected. And this is bad because you are allocating space for the memory, and still you don't want them to use, and you will not use them. Because when we talk about data structure in any programming language, so because they are not they will hold temporal value, not permanent value. When you shut down your software, this value will go if you don't save them in a database. So if they are temporal value that we are going to save them temporarily while we are running the application in a temporal storage, they will take part from the space or the RAM. And in all computer, the RAM, they are limited space. So if we are dealing with a source of data, and this source of data, we don't know the length or the value that we expect to get it from this, so we have a problem with array to use them. This is why we have something named Arraylist in Java. So an array list, it is similar to the array, which has a collection of elements that also store the same type, all the same type. However, it has a dynamic length. So when you created it, you don't have to allocate a number of value for this array list. So returning back here, we said new integer 10. This is how we create an array in Java. Here we said new array list, and we use this kind of syntax, integer, but we didn't tell the compiler how many elements we are going to save in this list. We didn't say. Because we use array list. However, we have to declare the type. So all the values are going to be integer, and we can put how much we need in this array list. So there is no limitation or restriction about the number of elements that you can save them in this array list. So it is, we can define it another way by saying it is a resizable array. It is very similar to the array. The main difference is it doesn't have a predefined size. It is a resizable one. So you can insert more values, and it will take, the size will be changeable based on the values that you are going to insert in this array. So I had a dynamic length, or it is a resizable array. And also the array list, you can put numerical value or string, and you can put an object. For example, you can create different objects from a special class, and then you can put them. So this is why, even though this integer value or string value, it deals with it in the array list as is an object of a string, an object of integer. This is how the array list is do. So the element in the array list, they are not only value, they are more object. If you said integer or string, we are talking about an integer object or a string object. And for sure, if you have a class A, so we can say array list of class A, object from class A, and then we can put different object from class A in this array list in this case. And this is also a very important usage for array lists, that you can put set of object. We are not talking only numerical values in this data structure. Again, when I said data structure, I'm talking about a data container, a temporal data container. Array list, one of them. And we will learn different, let's say, data structure during this course. So if you want to add items to this array list, since if it is a normal array, we'll say, for example, my array 0 equal this, my array 1 equal this. However, here we don't define the length before, so we just created it as an empty one, and then we can use a function add. This function is a defined function in the array list, since we have already imported this class, so we can use it. Array list, there's add function. It will take any value. It should be somehow, not somehow, it is a must to be the same type as you have already declared the array list. So you have series string, you should pass only string values. And you can add as much as values you want for this one. Here, if you want to access a value now. So now you add the values, but you want to pull one of the value. Again, it is not like the array. The array, you can give the name of the array, braces 0, 1, 2. Now we will use the index, because in this array list, all the values, they are indexed 1. So the first value have index 0. It's the same like array. So I can use, rather than using add, I can use get. Get 0, get 1. So if I use get 0 to print it out, it should print Volvo in this case. So 0 will example the first element, 1 will example the second element. The same as we do for array. You are still able to see it, to see the screen, Jason?
Yeah.
So if we go to this here, yeah. So, but by the way, I can print the whole values in the array list by passing just the array, like here, passing the array name. So here it printed out Volvo, BMW, Ford, Mazda, because add, and then I printed out. If I want to print out a special value or print the whole values, I can use the for loops also. Make a looping between them using get I. Since I'm making an iteration, so I'm looping, and each iteration I make print a new line, so we should expect the values will be printed line by line in this case. Let's continue with this array one. So far we know how to create an array list, we know how to add a value, and we know how to get the value. So let's go now to how I can change an existing value. I not want to add a value, change the existing value. So as there is a function named get, there is another function named set. This function set, here I will give the index of the element in the array list that I want to change it, and I will give a new value for this. So here Volvo will be open. So if I print out again the whole element in this, it should be like this. There is no any more Volvo. Because here I make a set, and the set there is a 0, and I give it the index and then change the value here. Add, get function, set function, all they are defined here. Just I'm calling them after I create an array list. And this is very important data structure that we will use in different applications. As we said, the most advantage for this comparing to the array, that there is no predefined length you have to declare it when you create this array list. To remove an element, use the remove method and refer to the index number, which means that also, as I said, since this array list is an indexed one, so we can use the index either to set a value or to remove one. So remove, I can use it. So in this case, remove 0, which is the Volvo one, I will have this. I will not have any more the first element that has index 0. And now the BMW is going to have index 0. Will not have any more index 1. So if you delete 1, the whole values will be re-indexed in this case. looping, so either we can use the for loop, the classical one that we know this, or we can use the for each. The classical one that we know this, that it is say I0, here we used to get the size. This is another function also that return for us the size. This is why we can use both of them. So we can use the for each loop or the classical for loop. The for loop, the normal one. So, but the for loop, as far as you know, in different programming language, it is the same. So first, it is not 100% the same, but almost the same. So in C++ and Java here, the for loop, it will be the same. So we were going to declare first and define the increment or the decrement that we are going to use it, which is a counter. And we are going to define it is increment or decrement. And then here, we, based on which condition, we are going to make this looping. So here we use a for each. People who are not aware about the for each loop, so rather than using semicolon, we have to use double dot here. And you should tell that this is for loop based in which collection. Normally we use it to collection. When I said a collection, which is a data structure that has set of items. Because when you will use it, the number of the iteration for this loop, it will be related to the number of the element on this data structure or collection. So it should be a collection. It should not be like a normal variable. So when I said for each string I, which means that for each element in this data structure equal to I. So I equal Volvo. Then in the next iteration, I will equal BMW. In the third iteration, I equal Ford. In the fourth, I equal Mazda. So it takes two parameters, the collection that we are going to make a looping based on this, and the number of iteration of this data structure is, the number of iteration data in this data structure is based in the number of elements in this, plus there should be a variable that will point to each value in each iteration, which is I use it I. You can name it whatever you want. But in the first iteration, as I said, I will point to Volvo, and the second one BMW, and the third one Ford, and the fourth one is Mazda. So far, most of the examples that we have, we have already seen it is based on the string one. It doesn't mean that we only can have a string. We can have also integer here, like here. And if I declare it as integer, so all the values should be integer. All the expected value are integer. I use add, all integer values. And then I use the for each loop. I said for this for each loop, go ahead, make iteration based on this data structure, which is my number. And for each one, we'll have an integer I that which resembles each value. So I use here integer. Here I said string, because I know here the values are integer. So I said, okay, integer I, in this case, add here integer I, integer I, integer I in this case. Remove all elements in an array list. So there is a function also named clear, which is clear. So in this case, it will remove the whole element. As I print out, it will be an empty one. It's still, we didn't delete it as an array list. It still exists. So here we didn't get error because there is an array list. However, it is an empty. So we removed all element. Jason.
Yes.
So if I will ask you not to use the clear function and to remove the whole items in the array list. How you can do this based on what so far we have already discussed.
Cars remove like with the number of items in the array list.
Yeah, you make a loop, you mean?
Yeah, kinda. Yeah.
So, and what function you can use to remove the whole values in this case?
Like for each.
Yeah. You can use for each like this,
Yeah.
but here,
Yeah.
which function you can use here?
Cars remove I.
No, in this case, my question that I can use a function .clear that to delete the whole values in the array.
Yeah.
So this is, it's okay, it deletes the whole values. If there is another way, it's more, it is not the correct way to do it, but it is an alternative way to use it. Which is, if there is another way that we can delete the whole values in the array list, what you said is correct, that you use a loop for each. You give the name of this like the cars, as we did here. And if it is a string one, so we can use it like here.
Yeah.
So, but what we are going to use, which function here?
Remove function.
Which function? Label? What do you say?
Remove.
Label? No, there is no function label.
Like remove.
Remove, yeah, remove,
Yeah.
you are correct. Remove, yes. So in this case, yes. So we can say here, for example, remove. As we did here, like here, for example, here we name it also cars. So cars dot remove. And here I. Yes. It will move it all. Thank you so much, Jason. So this is, we have already mentioned before, this is dot size. So dot size will return for us the size of the function. Before I continue, as I told you before, when we deal with a special class, a predefined class, or a data structure, we are going to discuss here in this course some of the popular functions that they are defined in this class. But this doesn't mean that this is the only function that they exist. There are more. But these set of functions, like here today we said remove, clear, add, that normally you should be aware about them in order to start write your own code. However, there are more functions that there's a list of functions that is defined there. And if you need them, you have to double check the documentation for the Java for them. If you feel that you need more advanced function based what we have already discussed. Okay. Contains is a function that can be used to double check is this value contained in this array, which is this array holds this element, so it will return Boolean. Here I said Boolean ans array.contains. So here we create an array list. It has 4 values, array.add, 1, 2, 3, 4. And here we said Boolean answer array.contains 2, which means that do we have here in this array a value in 2? So as you see that the result should be saved in a Boolean one. So if answer, which means if answer equal to true, we'll print out the list contain 2. Else as doesn't contain 2. The same scenario here. So this is also very important. Why we tell, why we have to know this? Why we are discussing this? Again, if you want to make a real case scenario a real application. And I gave you the example of the embedded system before, which means that sometimes you have to create an application that has to deal with different source of a data. Like people talk about Internet of Everything. That you have a sensor. This sensor will always send, based on a timetable, the values. And you should have an application that has to deal with this, so you will collect these values. Before you will save these values in the database, you need to process these values. For if you are talking about why I gave the example of the sensor, you should be aware that the whole values is within the threshold. So each value, double check it. If it is within the threshold, then you can go and save it in the array list. Not you have to make an alert for the user. And then after you finish saving the whole values in the array list, then you can go to save them in a database if there is a need to save them. So these values that you are collecting, you don't know the value for this because there is an unknown source. It is unknown. It is not an unknown source. You are well aware about this source, but it is unknown value. So how it's reading now, what is reading now, what your sensor is reading now is what you are receiving. So in this case, you should use some function to double check. And sometimes you are going to make a function that will save automatically, or you double check before you're saving. So you know that there are some values coming to your array list, but you don't know what are these values. So this contains very important later if you want to search for a value. Because if we don't have the contain, so we have to go one by one values, one by one, to double check what is a value. So each time we pull a value, index 0. Is it? Yes. No. Index 1, is it? Yes, no. Index 2, is it? Yes, no. Index 4, is it? Yes, no. However, this contains, just you give the value to the array list, your compiler will return back to you, yes, exists, yes, no. We are talking about array list, maybe there's 100, 200, 300 values, thousands of values. So this contains very important function, and you will use it to double check if this value already exists in your array list, yes, no. I think it will be, this is the sort of an array list. There is a collection in Java, which is a framework set of classes. Here, in this collection, there are different functions that you can use them in any collection, like when you talk about array list, linked list, queues, and all of this. Later we will discuss it more, but it's very good that today, since we talked about the array list, and normally when we talk about an array list, we need sometimes to make a sorting for this, sort them. So one of the functions that is defined in the collection class that we can use it is sort, and we can use it in the array list. Like here. So now I need functions from the array list class and also from collection. I import both of them. So I create an array list, type string. Here we have a cars. I named name of the array list. I added a value for some. And then, so the values based how I added the values. This is the first one, index 0. This is 1. This is 2, 3, which is index 3, which is the fourth element since we start from 0. So we should have this first, second, third, fourth. However, since we use a sort function, so in this case, the whole value will be sorted as ascending one. There is different parameters you can use it. That maybe sometimes you don't need to do it ascending, descending. By default, it will be ascending one. And since we are talking about a string one, it will be ascending based on alphabetical one. B, F, Mazda, Volvo. So if you print it out, you will find this. You will not find this. because you use a sort function. Another example, when we have a number, again it will be ascending, and if we deal with a number, the sorting will be based with the numeric values. So if this is the first element, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, so we use sort. In this case, we are going to sort the values from the smallest to the biggest, using by this smallest value, which is the A1, 8th one, till we reach the biggest value in this case. So if it is talking with a string array list, the default is based in the alphabetical order. And if you talk about numeric value, it's based in the numeric value from the smallest till the big, since it is default ascending one. Jason!
Yep.
I will go with you. I will do it with you. Don't worry about it.
Okay, good.
Okay, so let's tell you what we want to do today, and then we will discuss it later here. So you have two array list. This is the first one, and this is the second one. You should create a class, a main class, where you will be able to compare these two arrays one by one. So you will go to the first element. Is this element the same as this index 0? The index 0 here is the same like here? If yes, you should print out yes. Go to the next element. Is it in the same value like this, in the same level, which is second element in the first array with the second element in the second array? If it is the same value, you are going to print yes. Go to the third one. If it is the same value, you can print yes. Go to the fourth one, it will go to this one, and since it is not, it will print no. And then you will stop here, and then we will go to check the fifth one, which is the last one was here, so it will print yes. Let's stop recording, and we will do it there, and we'll be back here. Do you agree?
Yes.
Perfect. Screen, Jason?
Yeah, I can. Okay. Can you see it right now?
Yeah, can you just maximize it?
Okay. Yeah.
So you create array 1 and array 2. You put the first value in the array list. You name it 1 and the second 2. And then you use a third one. Perfect. I like it. You did it in a very quick way.
Oh, good.
So, and then go ahead, present your solution to us. Do it.
Do you want me to explain it or?
Yes.
Okay. So as he said, I made two arrays. One is with white and one is without white. And I also made third array that result list. And I made a loop for each of the array 1 that if the array 2 has the same element of each of the item in array 1, then put yes string into the third array. Otherwise, this one and the third array. And I just print out the third array at the end.
So the technique that you have already used that to create a third array.
Yeah.
And then you double check if the value in the first array contains in the second, then you are going to do it and add the result to the third one. Is it correct?
Yep.
Okay, can you run it?
Okay. Yeah, this is the.
Yeah, here it is. Perfect. Amazing.